Hi, I'm Famous David. Today I'm going to show you my method of making a solar photovoltaic solar panel using solar cells that I bought on, I believe it was eBay. Anyways, what I'm going to use, this is a custom panel. It's a very small one that I'm going to make. This solar panel is only going to be 13 inches by 16 inches, I think. Anyways, it's enough to accommodate these small 1 inch by 6 inch cells that I'm going to use. And the reason I'm using such small cells is because I want to run this pump off of this solar panel, directly off the solar panel, not off a battery. So this is a 6-watt pump, 12 volts. So I don't want to have a panel that's going to produce too many volts. It only needs to produce 6 watts. This will be 13 watts, and I'll explain why that is. With solar cells, now they will come in various sizes. You can get 6-inch ones, 6 by 6, 3 by 6. In this case here, I've got 1 by 6. But solar cells, regardless of the size, always produce half a volt. So for 13 volts that I'm aiming for, I need 26 cells. Now 26 cells, because a 1 by 6 produces half a watt as well, that's also going to produce 13 watts, which is going to be enough for this pump. Now what you need to build any panel is glass or plexiglass, clear of course. You need your solar cells. You need your pre-soldered wire to solder the cells together. And you need some larger bus wire, pre-soldered as well, to connect the 2 rows of cells. We'll be making 2 rows, 1 row of 13. It'll connect in series, connect to the other one. That'll be connected in series. So every time you connect a cell in series, it adds up. So it starts out at 0.5, 1.5, etc., etc., until we get to the end, and then you've got 13 volts coming out. Positive, negative. Anyways, you use the bus wire to connect the 2 rows there, and you use the thinner pre-soldered wire to connect each cell together. And you want to have a flux pen, because you want to make sure that it's soldered properly. Without the flux, the solder will not adhere to the cells. You want to keep a little bit of soldering wire on hand in case you need to solder something, like particularly the bus wire, in case it's not going to connect perfectly. You might need a little bit of that, so it's good to have that on hand. I'm not actually going to be charging a battery with this. I'm going to be running the pump directly, but in case sometime I do want to run a battery, I want to make sure that the electricity doesn't flow backwards. Like if I was charging a battery and the sun went down and I wasn't producing anything out of here, or less than 12 volts, then the battery would start to discharge through the panel. Well, that's why you use a diode. And you use this diode to make sure the electricity only runs one way, into the battery, not back from the battery. I'll put this on in case I ever want to use a battery, but it's not really something that I need to do in this particular situation. I use these connectors, which I just got at the source, which are very simple. I glue them on, and they're easy to connect, and they work quite well. They're inexpensive. This whole thing is not very expensive at all. The glass was free. I bought this, has been lasting me a long time. I made a lot of panels. Bus wire, I have some heavier bus wire for bigger panels. So let's get started. So while we've got our soldering iron heating up here, we'll also be cutting our wire for the solar cells. And the way you wire them is you wire the top. The top is the positive side. The blue side The side that absorbs the sun is the negative side, so you want to wire them in series. You want to go positive to negative to positive to negative and so on. So we have to put wires on the back side that are going to be then flipped over and wired to the other side. So let's put them all on here. So we're going, because these are 1-inch cells, we're going to need wire that's 2 inches. So I've cut this piece of cardboard here that's 2 inches, and I'm just going to wrap it around. We're going to need, there's 3 spots to solder this, so I'm going to need 3 per. Let's start counting. 37, 38, 39, let's make it an even 40. And now I can just go down here, cut them like that. And flip them over. And I like to straighten out each one here because I don't need any little raised parts on the wire. That's going to affect the soldering. Okay, so now we want to apply our flux. And I'm not sure if flux dries. Maybe you just want to do a few at a time. These wires can get hot if you leave the soldering iron on it for very long. I have guitar calluses, so I can take a little bit of heat. You want to keep these wires as straight and as flat as possible because they've got to be able to match up with the opposite side. Okay, got these remaining cells all fluxed up, and let's see if I've gotten any better at this with this little bit of practice that I've done here. What I'm finding is that it's best to hold the soldering iron down for a little bit before running off, and then having patience and taking it really slow, making sure that the tip is engaging the pre-soldered wire, and I think that just came loose. There we go. Okay, let's try another one here. Hold. Run it up slowly. And there we are. The positive side is done. Now we flip them over and wire them in series onto the negative side. Okay, now got them flipped over, and we have to solder the positive side to the negative side, and this should go a little bit faster. Now the one thing you want to make sure of is you don't want these wires to be so long that they're connecting with the wire on the other side, and you don't want them touching each other either. They can come close, but they shouldn't touch. And if you happen to crack a cell, like I did with this one, you can tape them back together. You can elect to use a new cell, or you can tape it back together. In this case, I think I'll just tape this one back together. Okay, back in business. So we're coming into the home stretch on this panel here. I put the cheaters on because I like to get a close look as to what I'm doing. Make sure the solder is holding. Making sure that the wire doesn't extend into the next cell. And here's the last one for this array. And there we go. Now, we also need some wire back here so that we can connect them together. Now, another thing I like to do for added security, because these arrays are very delicate, so I like to put a little bit of tape on the between the cells so that they're not being held together only by the wires. If you find the soldering is going a bit slow, you might want to just get a sanding block here and clean your solder tip a little bit here, just make sure that it's got no gunk on it. Okay, we've got the two arrays finished here, and I've cut the bus wires. Okay, here we are. It's the array is finished, my 13 watt 13 volt array, and it could have been done a little better. I could have lined the cells up a little better so they look more aesthetically pleasing, but it doesn't affect the performance. I'll still have 13 volts and 13 watts. At least I should have. We'll see once we get it onto the glass, and then we will have our solar panel. Now, normally, with an array like this, if I had larger cells, I'd put them in onto the glass separately, and then put the bus bars on. But because this is a small array, I just did it all together, and it'll just sit on the glass like that. I have a frame for the glass, and then I'll put my emulsion on. First I'll put the emulsion on the glass, then set the array down, and then cover it over. And the emulsion will keep the cells on the glass so they won't come off, and it'll also keep the oxygen from getting to the cells, because oxygen will deteriorate the cells and cause them to lose efficiency. So that'll be the next step. Okay, so now we're going to solder in the connecting block here, and we'll just put that on here. Of course, we have to put our flux on. And hopefully my soldering iron is hot enough now. And we'll just give that a try. Okie doke. Okay, that's done. Okay, the next thing we need to do is we need to make a mixture of Varsol and silicone, clear silicone, and this will be our emulsion. Put the glass that I cut into this frame and siliconed it all around. Now, the first impression may be that silicone and Varsol don't mix, but they do. You just have to keep at it. And I probably should have used a smaller mixing stick here, but this is what I had. So it will eventually mix, and then I can put the lid on and shake it. So you can see now that the silicone is starting to become emulsified in the Varsol. Okay, now I've got it stirred up. Now I can shake it up, and I'll do this for a little while, make sure it's all nicely emulshed, and I'm going to use a disposable brush here to spread it on the glass, just a thin layer to start with, something that'll adhere the cells to the glass, and then I'll pour the rest over top of the cells once I've laid them on. Okay, as a precaution here, because it is a damp day, very foggy out and a lot of condensation, I'm going to dry this off. Okay, now I'm just going to spread a coat down here prior to putting on this. Alright, just need a thin layer here all over the glass. And now I shall go and get the cells. And here they come. Unfortunately, we're not working with any wind today, any windy conditions, because this is a very delicate job that I have to do at this point. Let's get them lined up nicely, lay them in, and voila. Okay, now try to pat them down so they stick. This is a metal frame, so you have to be careful that nothing is touching the metal frame or it'll short out. Just going to pour this on. I'll use it all. Alrighty. You want to make sure this block is glued in there solid. And at the same time, you don't want to plug up the connecting holes there. You'd be trying to clean them out after. Okay, that's it. I'll just let that go for now. Let it set up. This can all go in the garbage. And then once the sun comes out, once this fog burns off, we'll test it. Okay. Here's our finished panel. This is the back side. I put a covering over here. You want to make sure you don't put an insulating cover on like corrugated plastic. It'll cause a lot of heat buildup, and glass could crack just from differential heating of the glass. Thick glass dissipates heat slower, and hence you get more differential heating, so thinner glass is better structurally, maybe not, but certainly in the sense of dissipating heat, thin glass is better. Now, does it work? Well, why don't we find out? Let me see if I can zoom in. Yeah, I think we can see that. Okay, I'm going to go and connect this. And what do we got? 13.04. Just exactly what we were aiming for. Terrific. So far so good. Let's see if it'll pump water. Okay, we've got intermittent sun, but it's out now. And we're going to test this and see if the pump will pump water. And there we go. Let's see now. Look at that. We're pumping water straight off the solar panel. Probably needs full sun to do it, but it's fine enough for me. It's going to be enough to aerate a pond. Hi, Famous David here, doing the fall chores of raking up and gathering the leaves, and what is more frustrating, trying to keep this bag open while you're putting the leaves in. Well, come up with a solution. After the election is over, any election, go and get an election sign. If you have one on your yard, all the better. And get rid of that. And take this part here and bend it into this shape. bend these wires back, and this will fit nicely right into here. And you can proceed to fill up the bag. Makes it a lot easier.